businessman, I'm a convict. He said, no, you're going to go to that business meeting. And I went to it, and the second one I went to, I really got into it. There was 7 guys that came to that meeting. All of them were a different church. There was Catholic, Baptist, all different denominations, 7 1. And then a week after that, the second meeting, they had a group come to the prison called 100 Teens. And it was a bunch of teenagers from North Carolina. And they came down and did a presentation of Jesus' life from birth to crucifixion. I got into that so deep that I went up, almost running up to the front, and asked Jesus into my life, my heart, right there in that prison. The next week was another full gospel meeting. I came back to them and I told them what happened. They prayed for me, and 2 days later I got filled with the Holy Spirit. Well, they told me, they said, now this is not a game and this is not a dream. This is something that you really got to make a commitment to. And so I said, okay, what I got to do? You said yes, now you got to turn your whole entire life. That means everything over to Him. That means stop your appeals, stop your lawyers, and stop trying to get out of prison, because that's not what's important now. You're living for Christ if you made that commitment. I said, okay. And so I did. I stopped my lawyers, I stopped everything. And I said, and I asked one of them when he came in, because when they come in to see you on a regular basis, a convict will invariably ask one of his friends, which he's made, do me a favor, whether it's illegal or legal, you know. And so I said, okay. He said, what you want me to do? I said, pray for me. Sure, I'll pray for you. How many Christians would come in and not, you know? And he said, what do you want me to pray for? I said, to get out. He said, no, I won't do that. I said, well, I thought we were friends. He said, we still are, but I'm not going to pray for you to get out. He said, this is what you need to pray. You need to change the way you pray. He says, God didn't put you in prison. You made those decisions. You made those choices. Some of them were bad choices, and that's where you're at. You got to pay the consequences for that, regardless of how long it is. But he says, what I want you to do is you pray that God will take advantage of this time. And He will mold you and teach you and give you wisdom to be bold enough to witness to other people. You have got to learn everything you can learn that's in that Bible. Read it from one end to the other and back again, because you're not going to do it on the street when you get out. You're going to be too busy trying to catch up, because you won't be out for a while. This guy's been in prison also. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And so I started every night working on my prayer life. And I'd go to bed on my knees, I'd get up and I would pray. I'd wake up in the morning, before I ever got out of bed, I'd stretch straight arms up in the bed and I would pray to start my day off. I was as sincere as anybody could get, okay? I actually saw my life change right before my eyes, 180 degrees from where I was going. Things didn't matter no more that way, because I had another life to live. And they taught us about setting an example, you know. And I don't know if I told you that when she was taking care of my grandparents, she tried to poison them with arsenic, because she wanted that 38 acres. Her son burned my house down on my 52 acres. And she had something to do with that, because she thought, well, she'd get the money off of the house, but that wasn't the way the agreement was. The man that owned the house got the house back and the farm back. And so we lost everything on that. Her son was like a puppet. Anything that she said do, he would do. Well, he's the one that burned the house down. He's the one that started all this mess with my parents. He's the one that shot at my parents up at Lake Lanier as they were driving down the road. I got blamed for it. Then we proved later that, you know, I didn't do it. So he's the one that broke in their house when I went over there. regardless of who's to blame or whatever on that thing, I had to let all those things go. Now, not only losing my parents and my grandparents and her trying to poison me in prison, I felt like all my dreams had been shattered. I felt like Humpty Dumpty sitting on the wall and let's try to put these pieces back together. And God didn't want those pieces to go back together. He said, I got something else for you to do, and it don't include those dreams.
Yeah.
And so when I got out, after some few conversations with him and everything, I understand now. You can't be a farrier when you get out, because being a farrier is hard work. And you've got to develop certain muscles for that makes it easier. Well, after another 8 years layoff, 16 years layoff altogether, you're not equipped to be a farrier. Well, somebody stole all my tools too while I was locked up. I had a trailer full of tools. They stole that. I lost my farm, my arena, and my horses, so I didn't have any horses to train. Well, you don't go back into horse training after you've been out for 16 years. That's just not done that way. I couldn't be a vet because I couldn't get back in vet school because of my learning curve had slowed down a little bit, and I'd gotten older. So all those dreams I had were just dreams. He said, I got something else for you to do. Well, while I was in prison, I learned a new skill, and it wasn't what I set out to do. I was operating the sewer plant for the prison because there was an old guy in there, and he wanted me to help him. He was working on the farm, and he wanted me to help him on that. So I eventually took over his job as a farmer for the prison. I also took over his job for the work in the wastewater plant. Okay, I felt at this point now, because I had read a good bit of Genesis and about Joseph, I felt like Joseph was my story.
Yeah.
And here I am, close security because of the life sentences, but I was treated like a trustee. And I had great favor with the wardens and the commissioners and all that, and I wasn't treated like somebody that had in there for murder or something. So I took advantage of that. I had the ability to have my own 2-acre garden. Now, this is just unheard of. I was a farmer for the prison, but I had my own 2-acre garden down at the wastewater plant. I grow anything I wanted to grow. The officers would bring me the seeds and the plants to plant in my garden. I couldn't go out and buy them.
Right.
And so I had tomatoes and beans and potatoes and corn and everything you could think of right there. The women at the prison that ran the office up there, the accountants, they'd come down with their little brown bags at lunchtime and go through the garden. I'd tell them, pick whatever you want. And that, naturally, I was in good favor with all of them. Now, another job I had was gassing up all the vehicles. I'd go out in the evening, put every key to every vehicle they had in my pocket. They couldn't come get me because I had all the keys. I'd fill all the vehicles up with gas, and I was in charge of that. Well, anytime somebody from the state office would come down to the prison for something, they would gas up at our gas pump. They'd call me, and I'd come up and gas them up. Well, every time I gassed up a commissioner or some high-ranking person, I gave him a little sack of tomatoes. And he liked that. And that gave me great favor with the higher-ups.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that came back later to bless me. I also ran the largest leather business that's ever been in that prison. Stock leather, you know, these little billfolds, they sell at the thrift stores and, what do you call them? Flea market. And my wife would come pick them up and sell them, have a dealer there, and he would pay me in cash money, put it on the books. And I never hardly touched them. I had a guy, when I ordered the leather, I had a guy to cut it out, wanted to press it, wanted to dye it, wanted to put them together, wanted to lace it, and I would just take the profits from it like that.
Wow.
And so I was a businessman.
Yeah.
Well, I took that money and sent it home to Liz to help her get her house built. And every Saturday when she'd come, or Sunday, I would have a black bag full of produce sitting out there on the curb, And I kept her in produce all summer long.
Wow.
So, I mean, we were benefited by my incarceration like that. So, while I was working the sewer plant, they allowed me to get my training through correspondence courses, and I went all the way to the top for water and wastewater license, and I got them free because they paid for them. And I thought that was pretty good favor too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the end of my time up there, I thought, well, I had everything I could possibly want here: leather business, a garden, favor with all these people. And they transferred me back to Jackson. Now, Jackson is where you start. And I said, this is the first time I'd ever done this. But getting on the bus is about 100 miles. And I argued with God all the way down there. I said, God, you just don't understand. Yeah, really. You don't understand. We don't go back to to Jackson. That's not where you go back to. That's where you start, okay? He says, bloom where you planted. I said, okay. And so I got down there, and I thought it was something I'd done wrong, or they were trying to get me out of the relationships I had up there. And they had lost their wastewater operator. He escaped. Okay. Now, the wastewater plant was on the far side of the institution. It was 200 yards from Highway 36 and had a 4-rail fence right there by 36. And they only saw me twice a day. And they didn't have any idea whether I was there or not. But God says, I'm going to plant you there because I know you're going to stay. They found out that I could stay because I could walk off any time I wanted to. Okay. Now, at Friday night at Jackson, we had a full gospel chapter down there. That was a full chapter set inside the prison. Okay, we also had one up at Buford, still got it up there. I was president down there for that chapter, and every Friday night they'd bring in a different full gospel chapter. And they would bring testimonies, music, and so forth. And there was this guy that played a guitar, and he had an insurance agency. And so I liked these people. They liked me and respected me. And one of them just happened to be my Sunday school teacher when I was about that high.
Wow.
I didn't have any idea we'd ever meet again like that. And so this guy said, I got a client that needs to meet you. And it was this man that had a wastewater business in his house, in his basement. And he sampled all the way up North Georgia and everywhere, these little towns and their systems, and he was running a lab for them. And so he told him about me because I was looking for a job. The guy came down there and he hired me on the spot a year before I got out of prison. He says, you got the job whenever you get out. Okay, that turned into be a real blessing. So I went on for another 8 years. Just because I got saved and filled with the Holy Spirit didn't mean I was going to get out. I asked God, I said, what do you want me to do in the prison? What can I do in here? I don't know anything about ministry. He says, I'm putting you on the mission field. That's the last thing I wanted to hear. Because I thought mission fields was stomping roaches and sleeping in the tent and over in another country or something like that. And he says, you're in a mission field. You got 20,000 people in this prison right here. And, or 15,000. He says, you got a whole lot of lost people right there. Yeah. And so I said, okay. And he allowed me to go to different parts of the prison, set up Bible studies, and I had a great following. And that's because I was setting an example. I was happy all the time. And these guys in prison are not generally happy. And they say, well, if you're happy, what are you doing? You smoking something? Why are you happy and I'm not? Well, it's like this. I'm serving the Lord and He's blessing me every day. And they want some of it. You know, they're greedy people. They just, that is the way it is in the world anyway.
Right.
If you got something, they want it, whether it's money or happiness, whatever. And so a man came and gave me the job. I got the job, and I said, okay, I missed parole. I called him back up and said, I missed parole. He said, you got it whenever you get out. Now, it just so happened that Liz was working for the sheriff's department. And she was also, I think she later came to work up here after that. And while she was at the sheriff's department, the parole officer for the county was in her office every day. Now that's a pretty good deal, because I'm going to be paroled to Forsyth County. I've already got an edge up with the parole office in there, see. And so, sure enough, when I got parole, he came in there and told her, says, you ready for him to get out? And she said, no, that's right, not now. And they'd moved me to Macon Transitional Center. And they said, you'll be down here 6 months. And I got to back up just a little bit here. When I first went to Jackson, with my education, they put me in as a clerk for the counselor's department. They had to write papers and do all this kind of stuff. And I had the education and a little bit of skills. And out of 7 counselors, this one particular counselor liked me and liked the work I did, so I did a lot for him. Okay, just put that up in your memory right there. When I went to Transitional Center in Macon, guess who the warden was? That counselor. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better situation than that. I wasn't there 8 months, I was there 8 weeks. Now, the chaplain that got me saved, or got me in that meeting, had retired. He had already promised me that he was going to help me get married. The day that I got out of prison, I was allowed to get my marriage license the week before. Liz came to pick me up. We went over to where he retired to his farm, just close to Macon, and got married in a church built in 1800 and something. That was a church wedding. We got married in 1980 on paper so she could build my credit. And so for the next 8 years, she built up my credit rating, and I wasn't even there. She'd buy things with my name on it and all that kind of stuff. And so when I got out, I already knew where I was coming to church because she was working for you at the time. And it happened to be the full gospel people were in this church. There's a whole bunch of them in here. Paul was one of them right there. So he was one of the first people I'd met when I came out too.